If you follow the channel, you know lately I've been on that quest for the perfect Wi-Fi security camera. But you also know that my favorite way to secure a home is actually a wired NVR security camera system, also known as a POE security camera system. Well, that's what we're talking about today, specifically a POE system from Reolink and one of their newer POE dual lens cameras. So let's get into it. What up, everybody? George Langabeer here. Yeah, my favorite way to protect your home is with a wired NVR security camera system. Why is that? I find it to be the most proactive way to protect your family and your stuff. When you're talking about home security, you want to be proactive, not reactive. Now, these systems can also be referred to as POE security camera systems. They can also be referred to as IP security camera systems, but they all mean the same thing. And today we're talking about an NVR from Reolink and specifically a POE camera called the Duo 3 POE. Makes sense, right? We're going to unbox it. I'm going to talk price and specs. I'm going to give you pros and cons. I'm going to tell you who this camera might be for. And before we get started, I do want to thank Reolink for sending me this camera. This is not a paid sponsor video, but I hope you all know whether it's paid sponsor or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you like it is. Well, let's get started with the unboxing. I just want to mention real quick, there are affiliate links in the description of this video if you're interested in purchasing the Duo 3. We've also got chapters down below if you want to skip around. But now let's move on to price and specs. Price. This camera is currently $168.99 as of this moment, but the normal price is $189.99. The Duo 3 has two 4K image sensors and uses an image stitching algorithm to turn that into 16 megapixel Ultra HD resolution. We've also got a 180-degree panoramic field of view. The Duo 3 also uses what's called motion track. Witness the track of people, vehicles, or animals within a single image. Benefiting from the 180-degree panorama, motion track feature records the complete movement of the target over time, sending real-time images via email and eliminating the hassle of video downloads. What does that mean? It means within the 180 degrees, instead of having two separate images, it just follows the person within that 180 degrees, which is pretty freaking sweet. We've got multiple night vision modes. We got black and white, and we got color. This camera has a PoE connection, PoE standing for Power over Ethernet. That means that you can use this two ways. You can either use it as a standalone IP camera, as long as you have an internet switch that has PoE, or you can use this camera with a Reolink NVR that has a PoE switch built in. Me personally, I recommend the Reolink NVR. We've got smart detection, which includes people, vehicles, and pets. This camera is considered an active deterrent camera. What does that mean? It means it has a built-in siren and a spotlight. So when it detects a person, you can activate a siren or a nice bright light to scare that person away. We've got two-way audio. We've got multiple storage options. You can either use the storage built into a Reolink NVR, you can use an FTP server, or you can use up to a 256 gig SD card if you use this as a standalone camera. But once again, I recommend using this camera with a Reolink NVR. Reolink offers a fun time-lapse feature. We've got an IP67 weather rating, so this camera should be good in pretty much any climate. This camera also has flexible mounting options, so you can either put it on a wall or a ceiling or a soffit. It is compatible with Google Assistant and Lady A from Amazon. Unfortunately, no Apple Home. All right, next up, let's check out the Reolink app. The Reolink app is available in the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store. go ahead and get the app and sign up for an account if you haven't already. I already have the app, so I'm going to open it. Now keep in mind I have this camera connected to a Reolink NVR, so this would be your home screen once you get everything set up. By the way, it's very easy to set up. In fact, on Reolink, as soon as you hook your system up to your network, it'll find it automatically once you have the app installed and your account set up. And it just couldn't be any easier to get these cameras and your NVR in the app. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to concentrate on the camera settings in the interest of time. So I'm going to click on that camera. Now you can see here, because of that 180-degree panoramic view, this looks a little different than your typical camera would. But there you go, there's the camera in all its splendor, and it looks fantastic. What's cool about this is most of the time with a 180-degree camera, you get a real fisheye effect, but because of that dual lenses, this just looks like a normal camera shot, and that's awesome. And then of course you can zoom, so you can see that vehicle. It also marks out vehicles, people, and pets with those boxes. Now, of course, any camera gets more pixelated as you zoom, but you get the idea. So you got the vehicles, see the train over there. Then if you look over here, you see how far away Harris is. Now, again, it gets pixelated, but that is far away, and we're zooming in on it. This building over here, this is a golf country club. If I zoom back out, you can see how far that is. So that zoom is ridiculous. And of course, you're not going to normally be zooming that far, so that pixelation is not going to matter. But anyway, the zoom's incredible. You can see another vehicle over here that's marked out. So it does a really good job, even at a distance, of marking those objects. All right, so that's the image. Then down below the image, we'll start there. You've got pause. You've got your audio on and off. I toggled it off for the sake of this video. You can take a still picture. You can take a video clip. If I hit it once, I'm recording. I hit it again, it stops. That automatically saves to your camera roll. Then you've got your resolution. You've got clear, balanced, and fluent. Clear is going to be your highest resolution. You can see that box following that vehicle that just came out of our parking garage, by the way. All right, then you can go full screen, which is the icon with the two arrows on the right. I'm not going to do that because it'll change my orientation. Then down at the bottom, you can hit that to talk through the camera. And again, I did a little demonstration of the audio of this camera in this video. Then you've got playback. So there you've got your different events you can scroll through. You've got your play, mute, same thing. You can take a still picture, video clip, your resolution. You've got a scrub at the bottom to scroll through your times, but that's playback. All right, then if you go to the top, you've got your audio alarm. So I can trigger an alarm there. I'm not going to do that to not bug my neighbors. Then you've got your spotlight to give you that color night vision. Of course, this is during the day, so that's not going to help me much. If I hit those 4 squares, that's going to take me to my multi-view if I have multiple cameras on this NVR. Then I can go into the settings of the camera. And here I've got my NVR at the top because, again, I've got this connected to it. But if we go down to record, you can toggle on the record. You got your settings. You can do post-motion record duration, pack duration, overwrite recordings. Now that post-motion record duration is very important because that way you don't miss any events. So what it'll do is even if the person stops moving, it'll record that person for a certain duration of time. You got 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and 10 minutes. Going back, this just shows you a list of all the channels I have on this NVR. I've only got this one camera connected to it. If I go into that schedule, I can create a recording schedule. I can do any motion, person, vehicles, and pets. And I can do that at various times during the day, and then I would just go ahead and save that at the top. Going back, go to push notifications. There you can toggle that on and off. If you go into the settings, you can allow critical alerts, which I've also talked about in this video and showed you an example. You can do your push interval. If I go down to the camera itself and go to the schedule, again, we've got another way to get to that schedule. And that's different than the recording. That would be a schedule for your push notifications. Email alerts, this is where you can go in and set up that tracking within the image. So that's where those settings would be. I can have FTP there. If I had an FTP device hooked up to this, I can turn on my buzzer on and off. I can share the NVR with other family members and such. If I go to advanced, you got user management, date and time. So that's where you can change your general settings and your user management if you want to give different users different permissions. You can reboot the camera, you can restore, If I go under channel list, again, this is with the NVR, which show all my cameras. If I go to display, here I can change my stream from the clear fluent, and I can also change my frame rate mode. I can adjust my anti-flicker between 50 Hertz, 60 Hertz, and off. I can control my day and night, which is the night vision, black and white, color, or auto. I can control the brightness of the camera. I can put where I want the camera name on the image. I've got Duo 3 down there in the bottom right. I can toggle on and off the watermark. I can create a privacy mask. If you're worried about the privacy of your neighbors, you can mask their area. If you go to advanced, again, these are just advanced settings. I'm not even going to get into it because you're not going to use them. Brightness and shadows, you've got auto for color day mode, auto for black and white, and auto for color night mode. And then at the bottom, you can log out of the device, and you can also delete the device. We can go to detection alarm. Under detection alarm, you got non-detection zone, where you can create a zone where it doesn't give you alerts. You can do motion mark. That's where it marks an image across the screen with that 180-degree pano. You can control your alarm sensitivity, your alarm delay, and your object size. You got person, vehicles, and pets. So that way, if you, let's say you have a really small animal that's like a bird or something, it won't detect you for that kind of thing. So you can control the size of the object, which is really cool. Then you've got your audio features there, record audio. You can do the slider for your volume. That's for the alarm and the speaker. And then you've also got a noise reduction slider, and you can toggle that on and off. If you go into light, you've got infrared lights. You can actually control the black and white infrared with the IR lights off or the IR lights on, or you can do auto. There you can control your spotlight, and you've got the brightness of your spotlight. You've got different modes, night smart mode, off, and timer mode. You can also control the detection so that spotlight comes on for people, vehicles, and pets. Going back, if we go to the siren, you can toggle that on and off. So anytime it's triggered, it will sound a siren to scare the person. Now, of course, when you're in a neighborhood, you probably don't want to do that because you'd scare a lot of innocent neighbors. All right, again, I'm just sticking to the camera settings, and there we go, in a nutshell. But the Reolink app is awesome. All right, let's talk about my actual review. What do I think of the Duo 3? My pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. Pro number one, we have critical alerts. What does that mean? Well, a lot of times on security cameras, you get a notification on your phone, but it sounds just like your other notifications, and you don't know it's from your camera, so half the time you don't even look. Well, with Reolink, you can do critical alerts, and it sounds a little different and gets your attention. If you're an Apple home user, you might be familiar with this. Let's say if you have an Aqara water leak sensor, it makes a little different sound and says, hey, you need to look at this alert. Same thing again with Apple Home. Let's say you have a HomePod and it hears a smoke detector. Well, that makes a little different sound, and it's a critical alert. That's actually what it's called. And it sounds a little different and gets your attention. Well, with Reolink, you can do that same thing. And that's pretty cool because with a lot of times when people talk to me, especially our customers with SilverHammer, they want those camera alerts to sound a little different, and you can do that here. Big pro. Speaking of alert, I find that Reolink's alerts in general are very responsive. Whether it's my phone, my iPad, my watch, I got the alerts right away. And I actually looked out my window and saw when the car passed or when the person was out in my yard, and I got them right at the same time I saw the person. So that's fantastic. Now, this is a big one because in my last video, I just did a camera wish list. All the different features, all the different brands I want to do different things with cameras to make the perfect camera. And one of my biggest complaints was two-way audio. And I said that I even stopped mentioning two-way audio tests because they suck so bad. And that if you heard me do a test, that meant that I found a good speaker and a good microphone in a camera. And guess what? I'm going to show you the test both on the speaker and the microphone because on the Duo 3, both are fantastic. So let's talk about the speaker. That's usually the number one problem I've had with a camera. So that's the person outside hearing you. So you're trying to scare somebody away. With most of these cameras, they can't hear you. I find with the Duo 3 that it's pretty darn good. Take a listen.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? How does it sound? How does it sound? Can you understand me? How loud is it? Testing, testing.
All right. pretty good. Now, the video doesn't do it justice, but I will tell you that it was worthy of me to actually do that test, and that means something for me. Moving on to the microphone, so you hearing people outside. I will say you on this camera, that was nuts. We've got people walking dogs, even across the parking lot, and I could hear them talking. I mean, it was spot on. As Teresa and I were talking in my apartment, I could actually hear us through the glass of our door and our windows talking inside from the camera right outside the window, especially when we were sitting in our living room. This microphone is spot on, and both the speaker and the microphone, very important, is the clarity. So I'm telling you, I'm very impressed with the Duo 3 and both the speaker and the microphone. And again, very big deal for me. How's it sound? How's it sound? How's it sound? How does it sound? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good audio? Hello? 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 All right, then we've got an amazing zoom. Now again, we've got those two 4K sensors combining into 16 megapixel. But the one thing about that big wide image is sometimes it's hard to get used to because it is so wide. Man, in one of my shots out here, I could actually see around the building. It's crazy. I've tested so many cameras here. I've never seen anything like this one. But the zoom, now I'm showing you here, now any camera is going to get more pixelated. But you can see I'm zooming into the train, I'm zooming into the bridge, I'm zooming into the building across the river. And of course, it gets more pixelated. But man, this is impressive. If you look how far away these objects are, that's crazy. And you look at these vehicles in our parking lot, how I can zoom in on them and how clear that is, even at night, that's crazy. So this is good stuff. The zoom is fantastic. Now this kind of goes along with the accurate alerts. We've got accurate detection, so that's another pro. So the people, the vehicles, and the pets. Now at this apartment, we have all three going on outside of our apartment. We've got an area where everybody walks their dog and lets them out. And so we've got the pets and the people. And then of course, we're right in the middle of the parking lot, and we've got a entry key fob right by our apartment where everybody has to stop to open the big garage door right next to us. So we got vehicles passing all the time. I found those alerts to be spot on as far as what they were detecting. Vehicles, it was definitely vehicles. People, it was definitely people. And pets, it was definitely pets. So the analytics there, A+. And then again, I can't say it enough, 16 megapixel resolution with those two 4K sensors. The resolution on this thing is amazing. If you can get over getting used to the 180-degree field of view, which doesn't take long, the resolution is fantastic. Whether you're zooming or just looking normal, it's great. All right, to go along with resolution, let's talk night vision. This camera has some fantastic night vision, whether it's black and white or color, or you use both. Now, I will tell you on this camera, I like that I can use both because the spotlight on this thing is intense. And so if you have it on all the time, it's intense. It's almost like floodlight worthy on your house. Like it shines across your yard. I tried to take a video of it, but it was so bright that the video was worthless. And you just couldn't even tell what I was looking at. So I wanted to show it to you, but it's so bright I couldn't. And so that's great. Now, if you're in an area where you got neighbors all the time, you don't always want that thing shining across your yard. So I like the fact that you can start in black and white, and then when it triggers a vent, it will switch to color. So you've got that mode and you can toggle that on in the app. You can do all color night vision, black and white night vision, or a combination of both. So I used both. But here in this place, we do have some parking lot lights, so that does help quite a bit. But I tried it in some dark areas. I also brought it into my studio and turned the lights off. It was still great. Now that didn't bode very well for showing it to you, so I'm not going to show it to you, but I can tell you it was great. But outside, man, we got a river. We can see the buildings across the street. I could see cars just very well. Really good night vision on this camera. All right, moving on to the cons, and I got to say there's not much going on here because I really do love this camera and I highly recommend it. But if I'm going to talk about some cons, number one is going to be the critical alerts. Yes, that was a pro, but it can also be a con in the fact that if you have that on, and again, this is one of the number one requests from our SilverHammer customers, that you had an alert on your phone with your cameras that sounds different from your other notifications, just so you know it's actually your camera and you need to look. That is great. And keep in mind, this is an option. You can turn the critical alerts on or off. If you have them on, just know they're going to come through no matter what you're doing on your phone because it thinks it's an emergency. And where that's a con is, let's say in my case, it's just a person out there walking their dog. That's not an emergency, but it's still going to interrupt what I'm doing. And that could be using my video camera. It could be using things that are important when you're right in the middle of something. So if it's a minor thing happening out in your yard, just know that that critical alert might seep through because it thinks you really need to know about it. So when it's a real incident, that's wonderful. But if it's just a dog walker outside or just a car passing by, that could be a problem. So keep that in mind. And once again, I'm a broken record on this one, and I hope that maybe Matter someday fixes this, but no Apple Home. So we've got Google Assistant, we've got Lady A from Amazon, but no Apple Home. So that's a con for me. Now, speaking of Google Assistant and Lady A, I did have some problems getting this camera in both. I've got Google Assistant here and Lady A here just for testing and for Matter testing and all that. And I had a little trouble getting those added. So if that's important to you, I've said this before with these wired NVR systems and these POE cameras, they are never really made for smart home integration. It's just never top of mind. So I give the tip of the hat to Reolink for having that in mind, but I did have problems getting them added. All right, my final con. Now, for the most part, when you're using a security camera, whether it's Wi-Fi or NVR nowadays, you're watching the camera on your phone or a tablet. Now, in the case of Reolink, where we've got an NVR option, that's great. You can hook it up to a monitor, you can see your cameras, it'll work when the internet's out, that's all fantastic. But for me, as a guy that owns a surveillance company and a security company, I like to have an NVR that's easy to use for everybody. And to Reolink's credit, their NVR is pretty advanced, and that's great for techies and people that are just great at figuring stuff like this out. But again, I install sometimes for the elderly or people that just have never even owned a smartphone. They're still on a flip phone. So the Reolink NVR can be a little hard to understand if you're on the lower end of the tech expertise. So just keep in mind, it might be a learning curve. But again, for the advanced user, it's fantastic. All right, now that we've talked the pros and cons, let's talk about who this camera is for. First and foremost, it's for a person that's in the Reolink ecosystem. If you already have their other cameras or one of their NVRs already, this is a no-brainer. Go get this camera immediately. It's awesome. Now, in general, in the grand scheme of security cameras, Reolink's in that sweet spot in between what I call the drug dealer cameras, which is the entry-level stuff, Swan, Night Owl, and Lorex, and the professional grade stuff like ALIBI Security, which is my favorite. Now, Reolink fills that gap, and it's a very important gap to fill because you don't want that cheap crap of the drug dealer cameras, but you don't want to spend the money of the professional grade cameras. Reolink is the company for you. Pretty affordable, good stuff, and that's what this camera is all about. Now, the one thing to keep in mind about that, and this in general, is because this is a wired POE camera, and these are wired POE NVRs, you've got to have the knowledge to install such a thing. Now, sure, you can get an electrician or professional installer to install Reolink for you. You can do that, but if you're trying to do this yourself, just keep in mind this isn't a Wi-Fi camera where you just go stick it up with a solar panel and a battery. You've got to have a little more advanced knowledge. So as far as who this is for, keep that in mind as far as the install. But Reolink is overall a great option for anybody that wants to protect their home, especially when you're trying to do it on a budget. So that's what it's for. It's that person on the budget in between the professional grade and the drug dealer cameras. And as long as you can get it installed professionally or do it a great job yourself, then Reolink's the perfect option. So what do you think? Do you have any Reolink cameras? Do you love them? Let me know in the comments. Have you tried the Duo 3? Now, this is a pretty new camera, so chances are you haven't. But man, as for the reasons I just said, I do highly recommend it. But let me know. Are you a wired NVR person? You prefer Wi-Fi cameras? What's your pros and cons list for both? Again, the NVR is my favorite way to protect a house. The most proactive solution out there, the most reliable, just a ton of different benefits, which I've covered in other videos. So check those out. All right, that's it. Till the next video. Peace and love.